I'm George Douglas, publisher of Kite Fishing Magazine. Welcome to our new show. And this is actually our second episode. Today we're going to be talking about river currents and just the importance that the currents play in the world of salmon, trout, and steelhead fishing. First, I'd like to start off with safety. It's important to remember that this sport kills. There are people that lose their lives every year just over fishing. And just so many people are hurt, and people's lives are changed by accidents, and like I said, ultimately lives are taken, and we just have to be smart about approaching our rivers and wading in the rivers, and it doesn't have to be to the point where you don't have to set foot in the river. It just has to be done properly. A good rule of thumb that I've always used, especially after some close calls, learn from my mistakes, is this slogan I heard this one guy say, above the knee is too much for me. So I think that's a really good rule of thumb, is just to never go above the knee. Occasionally you'll see me in waist deep water. Very rarely you'll ever see me over my waist. And I'd say 99% of the time I'm below the knee. And the reason is that there's really no need to. With these longer rods we have and the good casting ability, there's just no need to go in that deep. Maybe if there's a slack current and you're trying to wade out into the cast to the outer reaches and get into the slot better, maybe then. But if there's a current moving through, first of all, I'd like to say that fish love to hold in a current in waist deep water. I mean, that's perfect for them. So technically you should be fishing where you'd be standing. If you do find yourself in trouble in a current, you have to remember that when your body is square to the current, say the water's flowing right towards the camera, and I'm like standing like this, I'm capturing so much water with my body this way. However, if my body is this way, there's a less of an area for the water to grab onto, and I'm almost in a sense more hydrodynamic just by being able to stand sideways to the current. So if you ever do get in trouble, remember that standing this way, sideways to the current, will be less resistance on your body, therefore not feeling like you're getting pushed over. Also, your footing as well. There's nothing to keep you from going forward. When you're standing this way, your feet spread, you have that foot in a better stance. So always remember that standing directly onto the current will either push you back or forward depending on which way you're facing, and is a really compromised position for an angler. Another basic concept when it comes to fishing to anadromous fish, which are migrating species of salmon, trout, and steelhead, that you have to remember that they're not going to run in a low river hardly ever. When it comes time, late summer, early fall, and it just hasn't rained yet, a lot of times you'll see them congregating at the mouth, just waiting for that rain system to come in, raise the water, and allow them to proceed upriver for their fall migration. USGS.gov will really give you a good understanding of the river conditions by looking at these charts. This one here behind me was a clip from one of our previous films where I was tracking a run of fish. I was just waiting for the river to get to the right condition, and I was comparing these charts with weather patterns, looking at, I use wunderground.com, but just looking at the weather forecast, and as you can see, there was just the river was low for a while. Those little triangles right here will show the averages, so that'll give you an understanding of where the river should be. Those averages are taken over decades. of time. So those are really where the river should be for that time of year. Now compared to where it is, and you can see, hey, the river's running low. Check out your weather forecast. When you see a big system coming in, you know you're going to get that spike. Let's run this segment so you can get a good understanding of how I track this chart. That's exactly what it was. It was a hunch, or a lot of legwork and research to try and find when the fish are running. Nowadays, with the beauty of the internet, we could just turn to these water level charts, and they almost tell a story and help us predict when the fish are going to be in the river. This chart here will show you that for a long time the water was down, and we're just praying for water. And you see these triangles here is the average, annual averages of pretty much where it should be. So you see it was really running low, way below the average. And then a couple days ago we got a real big rain, and we see a big spike up here, almost to 4,000 cubic feet per second. And just as I was watching this chart, I kind of anticipated that after a couple days, let this water recede, let it clear up a little bit, and that puts us here at today, and it's coming down just here below 1,000 cubic feet. And it still might be running pretty strong, but I think it's enough to bring fish in and provide good fishable water and some clarity. Okay, we're up here on the river, and just as I thought, that USGS water flow chart was pretty accurate. The river conditions are just about perfect. The clarity is good, and you can see here behind me, there's just a bunch of fish in there. So use this example as a good reference. Also, keep in mind that this was a tributary to another river. Now, on the Salmon River, upstate New York, for example, you might have a different approach to this. If the river's low and you see a system coming in, you might want to be there the day it's raining and fish it on the rise, as if maybe the lower river would be hot as fish were congregating at the mouth. Now it starts raining, the river starts rising, and the fish come in, and you got a good shot at getting a fresh run of fish. So by using this example that I just showed you might not work in every condition, so you have to kind of think like a fish in this circumstance, find out when the best chance is to be getting those fish. Again, with the Salmon River, you don't want to fish it 3 days later, as those fish will probably be way upriver. Generally speaking, you have to be down where the fish are, and that's going to be a judgment call that you're going to have to make when you get to the river and you start tapping bottom. You want to be down to where you just be tapping that bottom every few seconds, and you just feel that with your finger on the line, you're just going to feel that bottom tap every once in a while. That's when you know you're at the right depth. The fish will usually hold down low, so depending on the currents and the river speed, the depth, it's going to depend on how much weight you're going to apply. So it's going to vary, but just make sure you're down by the fish, because chances are if you're not catching fish, you're just not down to the fish. Depth is really important and is one of the most critical aspects of fishing for salmon, trout, and steelhead. Get down to the fish and you're going to have some action. River currents will also dictate where you're going to fish it as far as which river you're going to fish. Obviously, if the river's ripping, you're not going to want to fish it. You're going to want to downsize and just try to find a smaller tributary. So a lot of times, for example, on the Salmon River, if the river's fishing too high, it's just flowing and it's over its banks, well, you want to go into maybe a smaller tributary like the tributaries of the Salmon River, Trout, Orwell Brook. From there, if those are really high, maybe you want to drive around and check out some Lake Ontario tributaries and try and find some things that are typically just a trickle, but at that time with all the rivers up, that's the time to hit these small streams and to get into some awesome stream fishing. Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Be sure to hit the subscription button and subscribe to our show. Have a great night. Tight lines.